All right, I'm going to ask just like a non-technical question here. All of your books are facing in the opposite direction.
That is very observant, Jim.
Yeah. No, I when I'm on calls, I don't want to be embarrassed by perhaps a book I have out there on the shelf. So yeah, that's the purpose behind that.
All right.
Welcome to the Enterprise CTO podcast. I am your host, Shawn Walchef, joined by Jim Balis. We created this show to have conversations with people that are in the intersection of technology at some of the biggest enterprise brands in the restaurant space. We have Chris Noffze. He is the Senior Director of Ops for Gong. Since 2006 in Taiwan, one store has turned into 2,200 stores worldwide, 33 countries, and Chris is sitting right at the intersection of the sweet spot of the things that Jim and I like to talk about. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Honored to have you. I'm going to let Jim Balis kick it off with the cold open question. So, Jim, I know it's your first time meeting Chris. 2,200 stores. What's your first question?
Yeah, I mean, Chris, it'd be great to know as you bring a brand from international waters to domestic U.S., how the technology shifts. Is the technology very different? Do you have to make adjustments, or do you try to use the same technology so as a franchisor it's easier to manage the businesses across the globe?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for the question, Jim. With having 2,200 locations globally, we certainly can learn a lot from the international markets. And it's an exciting time here because, the U.S. is just such an untapped opportunity. When we think about the population and just our green space, our open space for new units, certainly a lot of opportunity. When it comes down to, what technology works and what is similar, there's a lot of similarities between what works internationally and what works here. And so we're actually in the midst, right in the thick of it, of launching some of these different elements of technology here in the U.S. That have already proven themselves overseas, and that we've already gotten initial data here that it's successful here in the U.S. And so it's how fast can we deploy, and we're moving very rapidly. So
Are any of those technologies new to the U.S. or are they just similar?
Yeah. So one of the exciting ones, kind of our showpiece item, is our implementation of the SuperWoo, which is an automated beverage dispensing machine that uses it reads QR codes in order to dispense the drinks. And so this is something that has been very successful globally. We've got 116 that are currently active globally. We've only got 11 here in the U.S., which is 11 more than we had about a year ago. But we've got more in our pipeline that are in our warehouse getting ready to be deployed. And then we have more on the sea that are expected to be arriving here this month. And then I'm placing more orders, right? Because it's just proven to be so beneficial to the business and really does, support our business model of making operations simple for the team members, but also making that amazing guest experience for consistency for the guest. And so, it's something, it's proven itself overseas, and we share our learnings back and forth with our international colleagues, and have our pulse on, what sort of, how can we further optimize this piece of equipment. And so we have made tweaks and improvements and have been able to be the benefit of that here in the U.S. that we've learned from other countries.
Got to ask, how hard is it to find a service provider to fix it if it goes down?
Yeah. So service is an interesting thing. Obviously, in our local market here in the U.S., we need to, take care of ourselves here in the U.S., right? And so the good part is the bottom portion of this unit is essentially a reach-in, right? So any HVAC technician can service the bottom portion. The top portion has essentially a tablet that and then a QR code reader, right? That connect to pumps that pump various teas through the machine. So the pumps are actually pretty simple to service, and we have spare parts in our warehouse here in the U.S. And we also include those as part of our initial startup packages when franchisees are installing these machines. So they have spare parts, on site. In addition to that, the machine has some redundancy built into it. So there's multiple pumps, but let's say one pump were to fail for whatever reason, that you could simply reassign that ingredient to a different pump. And we do keep a couple spare options available on the unit for purposes of LTOs, right? So limited time offered products, and for the purposes of redundancy. So we have a couple fail safes in place, and so far we've had very good uptime on the machines, and minimal maintenance. Our routine maintenance is pretty simple in terms of changing out tubes when those wear out. So.
Are these self-service machines, like the customers actually getting the drinks?
So that's a good question. So no, it's actually for the baristas to use, right?
Got
so so it's for the back of house. We're still brewing our teas the way we always have, and we're storing those within the machine chilled, so we actually get extended shelf life, which is benefit. And the machine also keeps track of the timing of when you're changing products in and out to make sure that we don't have expired product. It won't serve it. And it actually has required cleaning cycles, which are great because machine, at the beginning of the day, there's a cleaning cycle. End of day, there's a cleaning cycle. There's a weekly deep clean, and the machine won't run until the cleaning cycle's done. So it's great. It's fantastic.
Just curious, what's been one of the bigger challenges that you faced on the technology side? Maybe it's the rollout of these machines or something else that you're dealing with. Just curious, and how you were able to navigate it.
Yeah. So, with any sort of change and with any technology, certainly there's things that you have to overcome, right? And so with this, really, it's modifying our existing locations to fit the machine. Machine's 1.5 meters wide. We actually do have another unit that is a little narrower that we're importing, and we'll be having another option. So, we're always looking for ways. How do we improve? How do we make it easy for the end user to use? Our team here in the U.S. Is creating, training materials that are easy for people here in the U.S. to be able to understand. And so we've done that, right? We've done the hard work, and a lot of the hard work is on the back end. So, creating all the recipes in the back end, it was a huge lift. But now that we've done that work, the end user gets all the benefit, right? Which is, it's ready to go when we have a new LTO that we're launching. We're able to deploy that recipe remotely to all the locations that are going to participate in that LTO. So it really is. It's fantastic that we have the ability in the back end and the dashboard to be able to, look at what's going on at certain locations and troubleshoot if there are issues. We can even do some of that remotely if, we're noticing that the amount that's being dispensed isn't exactly the way it should. So they're able to calibrate the machines. A lot of that's done on site. The physical, training in person, certainly that's a lift. And in the U.S. here, we've got a handful of us that are very well trained in the machine, but we continue to have to, train more people because we're launching so many of these. So.
At the drive-thru, small changes add up fast. A few cents here and there across thousands of orders, and you're talking real money. Recently, we ran a full-cycle experiment with a national QSR brand using Checkmate digital menu boards, side by side against the baseline. Same stores, same time frame, and in just 30 days, average check size increased by nearly $1. That's about a 6% lift. No extra labor, no slower lines, just digital menu boards surfacing the right add-ons and offers at the right moment. If you want your menu working as hard as your team does, learn more at itsacheckmate.com.
We couldn't do a podcast without bringing in these two letters.
What letters are those?
How are you thinking about AI and its usage within your business and deploying it across the restaurants?
Yeah. So AI has been a big topic of discussion. I went to the session at NRA that talked about AI, and so it's definitely buzzworthy. It's definitely top of mind, right? So for us, really, AI is something that it's a valuable decision making tool, right? I think it helps a lot of operators with, scheduling. It helps operators with forecasting. It can help operators with, food ordering. So there's a lot of ways that it already can be utilized. So for us, we want to think about what are our routine processes that we have, and how can we leverage technology to make those routine processes more automated, so that way the operator and the store crew can focus on the guest, which AI is not replacing that human touch element. And in our stores, that's what we've seen, right? So with the Super Woo, but with our other technology as well, right? So kiosks, that's a question that always get asked is, in nearly all of our stores, we have kiosks, and that's the primary way that most guests choose to order. And part of it is us understanding that that's what the guest wants, and then providing them with what they want, but then also maintaining that guest experience, right? Of handing off the drink and smiling and even assisting guests at the kiosk. I'll tell you that I was just at a grand opening this past weekend out in Portland, Maine, and had a huge turnout. Was amazing. But one of the things that the operator did there, which was really helpful, because we knew that there'd be a lot of people and they'd want to use the kiosk. They weren't familiar with our product because it's a new state for us. We didn't have any locations in Maine, and so we had a kiosk host that helped guests navigate the kiosk, helped them navigate our promotions that we were running for the grand opening, and that really did make a difference. And that team member was able to be close to the guest more than across the counter, because they were out there by the kiosk. And they were able to really kind of assist. And then when a guest said, "Hey, I've got it from here, let me just play around," gave them space. They were able to, make all the modifications, make it into an extra large without feeling guilty. All of those things that we like to see. And so, really, to get back to the original question, AI. Yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's important to stay at the front edge of technology. And so, at Gong, we definitely, I think we rolled out kiosks before many groups did. And then now with what we're doing with Super Woo and even menu boards, right? So, I think back to the days that we had static menu boards and you had people outside, putting pricing up. We've gone from that to digital menu boards to now we're even in our Gong 2.0 stores. Do we even need a menu board? Is the question, because we have kiosks, and that's the primary way that a guest is seeing our brand, is through the kiosk, through the mobile app. And so in our 2.0 design, we have these large LED screens that are used more for, product and lifestyle imagery. That's very dynamic and very engaging for a guest, but is not just a price pointed showing you our entire menu on a menu board. So we're definitely, always thinking ahead. And I think that's one of the things that we'll continue to lean into.
And as you think about AI, not to belabor this point, but always curious about how people are deploying it in an efficient, useful way. How do you think about like buy versus build, right? With codecs now, you can program it to do almost anything. When you think about the deployment of it, whether it's the dynamic digital boards that may promote, certain drinks relative to certain weather, or other events. Is that something you build yourself, or do you buy a solution off the shelf?
Yeah. So the way that I approach that type of issue is, we always want to be thinking about what's the operational problem that we're trying to solve. Start there. Don't start with the technology and say, hey, there's AI that does this. Start with, your store. What is it that's the pain point? What is it that your guest wants? And when you know what you're trying to solve, it then becomes very clear which technology, what path you need to go down. And then you can do the return on investment calculations, right? Like, does it make sense to lean in and make this a custom, option, something very bespoke? Or is there something off the shelf already that, one of our vendors, has that's fantastic, right? And so I'm always there. I'm going around to the booths, trying to see what is out there, what are the options that are available. And but that's kind of how we evaluate, right? Like what makes it into our stores. Certainly we test, right? So that's one way that we're able to is we'll test in a few locations and see if that solution makes sense. If it does, then great, we'll expand. If it doesn't, then on to the next, right? And so it's a constant improvement. It never ends. We're always looking to be more efficient and to provide a better experience for the guest.
Do you have any recent stories of a technology vendor partner that has, gone out of their way to actually prove, the ROI of what they've sold you or what you guys have purchased?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got multiple technology partners, and most of them are happy to let you try their product before you buy it, right? So,
hopefully, with 2,200 stores, I would hope.
Yes. So, and a lot of times it's, hey, we'd like to try something here in the U.S. And they understand like there's opportunity outside the U.S., right? And similarly in the other international markets, I know they get approached with different, products. And so, again, it's the same vetting process. In terms of example of some of the technologies that we're using here in the U.S., we do work with Crunch Time for Zenput and e-learning. So those are two pieces of technology that we provide to the stores that really enhances operations and gives us ways to help communicate information down to the stores. And so we're always on the hunt. It's an exciting space to be, and we'll continue to evaluate options as they come available. So
yeah, we're a huge fan of Zenput. It's a great platform, and we use it at a number of our portfolio companies as well. We've had a lot of success with it. It was a great buy for Crunch Time, and have that integration as well. All right, I'm going to ask just like a non-technical question here. All of your books are facing in the opposite direction.
That is very observant, Jim.
Yeah. No, I when I'm on calls, I don't want to be embarrassed by perhaps a book I have out there on the shelf. So yeah, that's the purpose behind that.
All right. Which is your favorite one that you read, assuming you actually read all of those and they're not for show?
So I really like to watch the Money Guys. It's a financial, they have a podcast, but they've got a couple books that are top of mind and favorites. So yeah.
Any stock advice for our technological listeners?
Oh, in the QSR space, there's never a dull moment. So I'm not gonna give financial advice, but certainly I pay attention. Yes.
So switching to the business.
My non-technical question is: you had a career in politics before restaurants, is that right?
That's true. Yes.
What did your career in politics teach you about the franchisee relationship?
Yeah, that's a good question. That relationship, and even the relationship that we in the QSR space have with our legislators is important, because there's issues that impact us, in the franchising space. So when you think about, menu board labeling, that was a hot topic back when I was in politics, and something that, impacts, our stores and the way that our products are presented to guests. Right. So, there's overlap there. Certainly I enjoy doing the restaurant operations, and that's where I've put a majority of my career investment behind, but still have a lot of friends that dabble in in government. So. Got it.
That is interesting. I didn't research that, so I'd be definitely going to do that after we get off the podcast here. Curious to know, on the POS side, it seems as more businesses, especially like yours, that are migrating to the kiosk and to online ordering or third party. Is there a need for the POS anymore? Does it go away, as you think about fast forwarding 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, that's a really good question, right? And certainly the kiosk is our primary channel, right? Our app is big, but kiosk is bigger, right? So the POS, I think it has its place, right? And so for some promotions that we might offer that might need that interaction with a team member, right? So like, let's say you have a bounce back offer, and it's not something that a digital offer. It's more of a old school. They have a paper coupon for something. That's where the POS comes into play. I do see it more and more now, where even on front counters, you've got a countertop kiosk that may be right in front of a POS. And that is serving that need a majority of the time. So will the hardware shift towards kiosks? I think it already has, right? I think there's a huge demand there. Some POS systems, the way that they operate, they still do require that POS for the kiosk to function, right? So that's something that I'm sure will continue to evolve.
Yeah, somebody once said to me, there's like sub 10% of the transactions that you need the POS for, and you will always need it. Manager overrides, certain promotional items, coupons, like you said, that it'll always be there because you need that infrastructure. It's not just the ordering. The ordering may migrate to different technologies, but that you need it for that 10%, and nobody wants to sit there and program all that stuff that they've already done.
Yeah. Well, the other piece of that is cash payments, because some kiosks have that capability, others do not, right?
Yeah.
And cash is less and less a percentage of our business, but similarly to what you're describing, you keep it because of wanting to be able to accept and have multiple options, right? So, people want to be able to pay with Apple Pay, people want to be able to have those options, but there are still markets, and it is store specific where cash is still a decent portion of sales. So, yeah.
How do you keep up to date with technology?
Yeah. So to keep up with it, I think you gotta be out in the stores. You have to see what the pain points are to know what it is that you're even looking to solve. And part of it is going to different trade shows, what's available. Going to NRA. Seeing what vendors have out there. I was on the floor going up and down trying to see like what is there out here that's going to wow me, right?
I think of the 2,200 vendors at NRA, every one of them had AI on their booth in some way, shape, or form.
They do, right? So it's deciphering out of that, because you don't need everything. You just need to make some smart, strategic, adoptions, and that could be your next big thing, right?
Yeah.
That could be the thing that takes you to the next level, and certainly that's what the vendors want you to think. And as the franchisor side, we're looking out for the needs of our franchisees, right? So what is going to give them a good ROI? What is going to make that guest experience, a cut above the rest? And so looking at those type of venues, you can see a lot in a very short period of time. Certainly, we can reach out to specific vendors that we're eyeing up, but I think those types of venues are where you see what's new, what's coming. Sometimes things were even released there that they hadn't been showing previously. So there were a couple of vendors I sought out and saw some things that were new to market. They waited to release until the show. So,
did you go to that? One of my favorite is where you walk down that hallway and go to the innovation alley. Yes. Which is kind of smaller and it's not part of the main building, but it's sort of the more new up and comers. I don't know if you saw anything in there this past May.
Yeah, there wasn't much that I completely was new to me, right? Like a lot of things I feel like was kind of what I expected or already was aware of. My observations were that there was a lot of buying happening at NRA this year. People weren't just shopping; they weren't just thinking about it. They were making decisions and moving forward, which I think it just speaks to kind of the pulse of the industry. Like where are franchisees, where are franchisors moving, and it's not just car shopping. It's technology's here. We're moving forward. So that was the vibe that I got from NRA.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to ask, have you ever thought about going to CES? I've thought about it a little bit. There might be some crossover now with consumer and retail and restaurants to see if there's technologies there that can be applied.
Yeah, right. So that's another good option. And I think you'll see a lot of the same vendors, but certainly there could be some that don't overlap. I think when you go to something as big as NRA, you're getting a lot of options right in front of you. And so part of what makes a visit to something like that effective is ahead of time. What I do is I go through the list and I see like, who do I specifically want to meet with, right? And try to be strategic because I was there for 3 or 4 days and still felt like there's areas I could have spent more time, but definitely hit the things that I prioritized. So yes.
What do you think's the most important question that we didn't ask you about Gongcha and technology?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, what's the next piece? I'd probably say, our kitchens are very simple and flexible format. So the question that I would ask there would just be, I've got a really tight space I'm trying to fit into. Where does Walchef fit into that picture, and how are they able to, how do we differentiate ourselves? And I would say that we do a phenomenal job of being able to adapt to unique formats. That is a competitive advantage for us. The fact that we don't have fryers, we don't have vent hoods, we don't have, we have a very simple supply chain, and so, our operators are, ordering their food order, their cadence of ordering is much different than some of the other QSR out there that are getting 2 deliveries a week, whereas ours are, maybe once every 3 weeks. Shelf stable items, we're able to, that gives us a huge competitive advantage. The small footprint, being able to open in places that other brands just can't fit, and also the ability to, with our technology, right? So with SuperWoo, being able to service a high volume in a short period of time. We opened a location at the Atlantis Hotel in the Bahamas that frequently gets huge cruise ships that come in with a lot of people that are thirsty and they want a nice cold drink by the pool, and we're able to deliver on that in that sort of environment. So I would say, thinking about just like the spaces that you take up when you look at some of the other coffee competitors that are out there, the beverage space, the small footprint is definitely, it's not a trend, it's here, right? And drive-through certainly is an option. We do have some drive-through locations, but primarily, our guests like to come in and grab a drink, and so.
Amazing. Any final thoughts, Jim, before we let Chris go?
No, I would just say that, one competitive advantage you guys have is the quality of the product, the fact that you brew teas in-house versus some of the competitors that mix a concentration, and credit to you guys for sticking to that and staying true to, what the brand DNA is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Product quality, we've been riding on that for a long time, and being able to combine that with ways that we can, deliver it more efficiently and fast is phenomenal. The grand opening in Maine, I had a guest come up to me and she was asking me about the pearls. And I told her, I said, these are the same pearls you would get if you were over in Japan or Korea.
Wow.
Because I've been there, I've had them there. So, she was, very, very excited that she got to have that here locally in the US. So, yeah.
It's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, Jim. For you guys listening, watching, we appreciate you. Please subscribe. If you know a chief technology officer of an enterprise brand that we should talk to, please let me know. Send me an email, podcast@calibbq.media. Thank you to Checkmate for allowing us to have great conversations like this. Jim, appreciate your time as always. Chris, hope to see you at more shows. I love that you are on stage sharing knowledge like this. We need to have more in-depth conversation, especially as fast as technology changes in our space. Thank you all. We appreciate it. And we'll catch you next episode.